I think we can entertain some questions.
Yeah, any questions? Yeah, Chantal.
Well, I guess the one that came more to me was a bit more at the beginning. I guess I'm trying to understand. So all the sustainability initiatives would be integrated with planning and all that. That's under the Department of the Environment, or is it the whole New Brunswick government, regardless of the department, aiming or working together towards that? In a sense, I'm thinking municipalities may be getting separate message between really trying to get economic development happening and getting youth people back like that housing, that kind of stuff, and trying to be sustainable at the same time. So is there work with sort of the other message grant, I guess, that municipalities are facing?
Yeah, there is. A couple of years ago, we entered on a case study, which was basically working with the City of St. John and some of the surrounding municipalities to figure out what government's role is in general. And in order to do that, we engaged some of the other departments. And it basically, through about 3 years, other departments worked with us to try and figure out what their role would be. And so we definitely are not the only game in town. There's no question about that at all. And we don't want to send out just the economic message, or just the environmental message, or just the social message. So the idea is to work on integration. And many of the cities have done this by themselves. You know, the municipalities who have worked on primarily the integrated community sustainability plans, they're starting from that focus. And so around their tables, they'll have information coming from the economic sector, the social sector, and so on. And they reach out to those various departments and, you know, get their help in order to build those kinds of products. It's something that sits naturally in the Department of Environment, because much of the sustainability argument has to do with environment, but it needs those other folks too to be able to work with them. So it's not unusual to go and there's a group now called Tantramar 2040 working on futures basically for several communities in their areas. And you go and there's somebody there from Department of Transportation, and there's somebody there from Business, the Enterprise Network, representing Business New Brunswick, and so on. So those other departments are starting to realize that this is where it's at. You have to have that triple bottom line in order to make things happen. It's probably a motherhood type. Yes.
Here in Brunswick.
Okay. Well, we'll have the any of this information. We'll give you an update next year, I guess.
Great. Alexi.
I guess I have more of a comment to make, and I'm interested in how this presentation and the information that it ties into our strategic planning conversations, and that sustainable community planning is happening in New Brunswick. Many of the communities are coastal, and especially when you're looking at integrated sustainable community planning, it's not really that different from integrated coastal planning or integrated coastal emission management planning. And I guess for this committee, I'm interested in seeing more connections, possibly partnerships or linkages and connections, and looking at how does the bigger picture DFO, Environment Canada, and provincial policy type work tie down into the community level planning where they're trying to achieve sustainability. And so that's something that I'm really interested in seeing. I don't know if all the members are, but how do we plan to go about doing that? I think that's something important to look at when we're looking at our strategic planning.
Yeah, I echo that too. I agree. I think that's the key, that land-sea interface. And so I think this is a great example of concrete of, we tend to focus, especially, you know, DFO leading oceans, integrated oceans management, tend to focus on the health of the ocean. That's fine, but people care about the health of their communities, and their activities impact the ocean, so it's quite related. I think the Northumberland Strait Planning Initiative, which Ron was going to talk about if he was here today, talk a little bit, is really looking at land-based activities and its impact on the marine environment and how to work with municipalities and other regulators of land use activities.
And I think it might have been Robert that mentioned the buy-in how, can we affect the buy-in of just everyday people to this idea of sustainability planning, both, at a coastal level, but keeping in mind the oceans. And I don't know exactly how we can do that, but I think we have education and awareness that we could possibly all play there.
Just a point of clarification, I guess, for Justin, say DFO with integrated management, I guess our role within integrated management, we have the leading facilitation role that brings everyone together and looks at the broad suite. So our integrated management plans for Lomas, they include the sustainable community components as well, and governance and healthy ecosystems. But I guess for our role as what we can also contribute to the process, and our mandate is focused on that healthy ecosystem. But it's not just to the detriment of everything else. We do incorporate that within our plans as well. So I just want to clarify that as well.
From my perspective, the people in the communities are the people out on the water. They're the fishermen. They're the aquaculture operators. They're the tourism operators. They're the people who are enjoying the beaches and the out on the water activities. So it really comes back to community and how those communities are, nurtured from just their history, living their history of living by the sea and having an economic base on the ocean. There's the whole concept of how tourism works into their economy. And it's all bound up and a little difficult to really separate. It's like threads, stretching out in all different directions. We talked about watershed groups this morning and how they're connected. But they're really another expression of community. It might be, the boundaries might be a little bit different, but they're still people living in communities wanting to make those communities better. So I see a big connection. I don't see how you can disconnect it. To go back to the Northumberland Strait example, there it was a problem with lobsters, basically, lobster fishery. And years later now, we realize it's not just about lobsters, it's about all of the things that contribute to that habitat and the health of that ecosystem and so on. So it's about watersheds, it's about sediments, it's about whatever. So.
Ross,
yeah, I was somewhat struck by, very much appreciate the simple principles that you were using when it came to the sustainable community dialogue. It was very accessible. And then I was equally struck when you commented that the water area is as busy as any land area. And I wondered whether you have somewhere seen a corresponding set of principles where there is no such thing as ownership as we understand it on land that would apply for the shared use of. I know that for very large areas under different kind of paradigms there probably are, but have you ever seen anything like that? It would be very fascinating.
Yeah, there are certainly principles of working together, which would transcend all of the, regardless of where you're working or what objective or what vision you have. There are still those principles of working with nature and discussion and so on. I can't remember the ones that are with for sustainable SACWA, but you could look at those and
well, I was.
Yeah. And basically, this is it here. So we have a balanced approach. That could apply to the oceans, the busyness on the oceans. Build on our strength, focus on quality of life, respecting nature, community-based, and relationships, and ensure open communication. So those probably could apply to almost any ecosystem or any system that you're looking at. And make sure that you have the landowners there, which we can just say the province owns.
But I guess I have a question about if you're talking about a community-based process,
yeah.
And I mean in a terrestrial environment, there's a certain level of certainty, I guess, in terms of maybe not always, but I mean there are sort of physical boundaries like municipal boundaries and things like that that sort of define in some sense what the community is. But I guess when you're working offshore, I mean, you sometimes see this up in, in places where you get one set of fishermen from one community saying, well, those other fishermen from this other community can't fish here. Right? So, I mean, how do you define community in that context of basically what's a common, I guess, is the issue, and what's the scope of community in those kinds of processes?
Well, the Marine Resources Plan for Southwest New Brunswick has tackled some of those issues.
Okay.
Because certainly they have the conflict history that goes along with, when you're trying to work together, a history of conflict definitely has to be appreciated and taken into consideration. The ownership issue there has been that we basically haven't discussed ownership. We've discussed instead that we all have an interest in this area, and therefore let